Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we will be talking about the Nintendo Switch 2. From what it sounds like online, this has been one of the more controversial releases for many people in recent memory, but an amazing release for many more people. Let me give you my 2 cents about this console, and hopefully that pushes you towards or away from purchasing it. First, let's talk about the device. Yes, I did myself purchase it, and here is the device. It has a much bigger screen, as you can tell. It has a lot more FPSs. It's bigger, a little heavier. Honestly, when playing it, where it sits right on your hands, right in the palm of your hands as you're playing it, it's a little heavier than the Switch, so it does wear that wrist a little, or that the palm of your hand a little bit more than previously. So this one would be one that I would actually might recommend getting some kind of grip. Where the Switch 1, it was never something that really hurt my hand, but then also it didn't go nearly as far down into the hand as the Switch 2 does. So for other people, this might be more comfortable. For other people, it might be less comfortable. But since the Joy-Cons are a little bit bigger, it does sit at a different spot in my hand. And I know that after a while of playing, that can get not very comfortable. The screen, I think, looks phenomenal for an IPS screen. It's bigger, it's brighter, it has more frames in it, it has more resolution, it's a 1080p screen. It looks so much better than the original Switch 1. And I remember I played the Switch 1 a lot on the handheld mode. I would say maybe 20 to 30% of the time I was playing in handheld mode. At the beginning of its life, I was playing almost entirely in handheld mode, and then later on moved to more playing on the docked. So overall, I still played it a lot in the handheld. I do think the original Switch was lighter. It was easier to hold, but this one, the things that you're getting with it make it a lot better to have, and I will put up with that little bit heavier of a handheld. Now, if you had the OLED Switch, which I never had, I never upgraded to the OLED version of the Nintendo Switch 1, I can't tell you how much of a difference that's going to be, but I do have my own OLED monitor that is more expensive than this Switch, so I understand what a good screen looks like, and to me, there's not really that big of a deal breaker when it comes to it. Now, of course, you're not going to get those really deep blacks that you would with an OLED screen, but also you are not paying for that OLED screen. It would easily make the price of the console go up $150 just to get an OLED screen, and you might have to even get rid of the variable refresh rate that this new screen has. So for me, completely acceptable. I'm okay with that, and I don't get the conversation about why it's super bad. Now, coming to the Joy-Cons, they feel so much better. I was playing on the Switch 1 the other day. I was playing with the Joy-Cons, and holy moly, those things are tiny. And now this one, the buttons are closer to that of the size of the Pro controller, but they're not quite there yet. They're like a happy in between. I still do feel like holding like A down like in Mario Kart for a long time can get annoying, it being a smaller button. But the joysticks and everything else feel amazing. The only very similar thing is the bumpers on the back feel really similar to the Switch 1. Even playing with one controller like this, these buttons feel so much better. It does feel much better. Now, of course, the left one is better than the right Joy-Con, just based on where the placement of the joystick is while you're doing that. But still, way, way better. The Joy-Cons are way better. So much bigger. Fits in my hand a lot better. My natural hand placement is a lot better when just having one Joy-Con in the hand. Feels so much better. 2 USB ports on the Switch is really nice. I know that was an issue for me when I had the original Switch. I always felt like having one more port could have been really nice. Still get a headphone jack, all that stuff. A lot more heating or cooling vents and everything like that. And these ones are actually Thunderbolt certified to my understanding, which the original Switch was not. So that caused a lot of issues for a lot of people. Now, I do wish this came in a little bit more color variation. Now, all you get is that little Switch 2 logo on the back, and then everything else is gray besides the 2 colors in the Joy-Cons. Now, I originally got the gray one for the original Switch. I didn't get the red and blue one. And this time I was like, man, I'm going to get the red and blue one if they do something like that again. And they did not. So if that's something like you really want the Switch, that's what you got to get right now. But of course, they will be releasing variants in the future. And that might be something to look forward to. I was thinking about maybe waiting for like one for Metroid Prime. But I wanted my Switch right away. I wanted to play the games. And I have a bunch of games I wanted to play. So I went with this. I do wish it came in more color variations, but what can you do? The battery, I've seen a lot of people complain about the battery size. Now, when you have a 120 hertz screen, 1080p, that thing is going to draw a lot of juice. I'm actually surprised it runs as long as it does. Now, I've played it for a couple hours playing Mario Kart, and it honestly doesn't drain that much battery, especially, I have it on like a 75% brightness on the screen and everything like that, so it's not draining that much playing Mario Kart. But like if you're playing like Cyberpunk or something like that, you're playing on max screen brightness, yeah, you're not gonna run that thing for very long, man. And I feel like the original Switch, even when you're playing like Zelda ran for like 2 to 3 hours, and I feel like if I can get 2 to 3 hours out of Mario Kart, it's basically the same to me. I'm not gonna be playing it for that long without some kind of way to plug it in, I think the new dock is significantly better. I can't hold it up because it is plugged in right now. The curved design is way nicer. Having a USB-C port inside the dock is great. And finally, they put an Ethernet port in there. I already have it hooked up to Ethernet. There is no other way to play this thing. The Wi-Fi is good, but Wi-Fi in general is just not as good as my Ethernet. So putting it right into the dock so you don't have to buy a dongle, thank you. And then not sacrificing 2 other USB ports is thank you, Nintendo. Now, the dock is stupid expensive, so I'll probably get a third-party one later in the future, but still, this dock is great. The controller attachment I have right here, the one where that comes with the original Joy-Cons, where you can put it in on the sides and everything, is really good. I wish they put the back buttons back here. I understand that this doesn't have any wiring in it, so they couldn't really do that on like the charging one, but that would have been really nice to have the buttons back here and just make this like $5 more or something like that. But otherwise, the snapping in, it is so nice, man. I cannot overstate how much better the magnetics are compared to the rail system. The magnetics just feel so much better, and it is not coming out unless you push that button or you pull extremely hard, which I know is what a lot of people were worried about when they announced that the magnetic feature. It's just so awesome. It is so much better. I was like messing around with my Switch 1, and I was taking it off the rails, and holy moly, they are actually so hard to take off. The button on the back is hard to press because it is so small, and then you gotta like hold it and rip it off the rails. Not nearly as good as the magnetics. Like, so much better. And I would take this over the Hall Effect joysticks because I heard having a magnet right in here would affect with the Hall Effects. Even like any size magnet would mess with it, so I understand why they did not go with that. But the magnetics are so much better, and it is not even close. Now, that's all I have to say about the device. I think the device itself is really good. I like a lot of the design choices that they went with. Like the new kickstand is phenomenal. I forgot to mention that. There's the... what else did they put on this thing? I think that's pretty much it. I think the device is great. I love playing on this thing. It looks great. It works great. It's very quiet. The fans are good. It's just significantly a straight-up better console than the Switch 1. Everything is upgraded. Everything is better. Now, let's talk about the games. I only have Mario Kart. That's the only first-party game I bought. That's the only first-party game they released. And, that's a little sad, but everybody was completely fine with the Switch 1 releasing with just Breath of the Wild. Now, I don't think this game is a Breath of the Wild game. It's not as good as a Breath of the Wild game. But it is something that to consider. It only is releasing with one game, and if you don't like Mario Kart, then this is a bad release window for you. Same thing with the Switch 1. If you did not like Zelda, then it was not a good release for you. Now, there's other things to enjoy, like the GameCube Virtual Console is a lot of fun, and I've been enjoying that. That released with 3 games, including a Zelda game. And then having nearly all Nintendo Switch 1 titles playable is also really nice. So it already has a very large library that you can play, and it runs a lot of those games better than the Switch 1 would, with some not running as well. and some not running at all, of course. Now you can look those up to see if the ones you want to play will run better. I think most first-party Nintendo games are going to run a lot better on the Switch too, and that's what I am looking forward to. The Mario Kart game, let's talk about that. It is a great game. I think it's my favorite Mario Kart. I've played every single one of them. Now, I know everyone loves Double Dash. I'm not a big Double Dash fan, but it is a really good game. The new mechanics are really cool. I understand people are like, oh man, they took out some of the things that make it Mario Kart. No, you just were stuck with Mario Kart 8 for 16 years, so that's the only Mario Kart you understand now, and they changed some of the things to make it fresh. And I think they did a really good job. The writing on the walls, the grinding, it all feels really good. I love how they took out the customization options. I hated the customization in Mario Kart 8. You get 4 people on there. Everybody has to change their car. It takes like 5 minutes. Then you play your first game. Oh man, nobody likes their car. They're going to go back and they're going to change everything because they haven't played Mario Kart in 5 years. Okay, now they fixed it again. And then there's that one person after the second game that, I got to fix it too. Like, you're just wasting 20 minutes customizing these carts when it really doesn't matter that much. So I was really happy that they changed that. Now, one thing I think is it has a really high skill ceiling in the game, so it's really nice for people who want to play Mario Kart, want to get better at Mario Kart, and want to play with people online and get better. But I do think it's a lot harder for those noob people who just want to play it casually for fun, is like their arcade or like their party game that they want to play with their friends. They go over to their friend's house to play. I think it is very hard to get into it compared to previous ones. I know I had a couple friends come over and they were having a very hard time with the Mario Kart World, even though they had both played Mario Kart 8 very casually at like parties, and I've played with them before and they did fine. Where they could not get a hold of the new sliding mechanics, they could not get a hold of the new grinding mechanics or writing on the walls. Now, they don't play very many video games, but they were fine with Mario Kart 8. Mario Kart 8 was more of a straightforward game, while this one seems like there is a little bit higher of a floor to the skill floor than there was in the previous game. And I do think the skill ceiling, as I said earlier, is much, much higher. So I think with that, it is going to be a really fun game for a lot of people who want to go hardcore to this. I do think this game is a lot of fun. I do enjoy how you have to unlock the characters. Now, unlocking some of the characters is really, really freaking hard, and but I think there's a good amount. And now they did remove some of the good characters that some people liked from previous games, and they added a lot more fan favorite characters. So, the give and take. Getting the new carts is pretty much the same as before, except now you get full carts. You don't have to customize them. I do wish there was a little bit more characters and carts, but there is a large amount, and I'm sure they will add more later in later DLCs. The open world it's all right. That was one of the big selling points. It is Mario Kart World, and there is an open world to go explore. Now, I do think it's something that's fun. Like, hey, I just got my ass kicked for the 15th time in online. Let me just go drive around and practice a few things in the open world, so I don't have to just open up a map and run around 3 times, right? I can just go to separate different ones. I can go collect these things out in the open world. I can just chillax for 15 minutes, and then let me go back into it. I don't think it's something like, oh man, I'm just gonna drive around in the open world to have a lot of fun. It's not nearly as fun as the 2 different game modes, but it is something that there that you can do. Personally, I love going out and collecting things, and that is my main drive to play it. I love going out and collecting all those things and trying to figure out, how do I get that one that's up there? Because I'm in a cart, I can't just go and climb up there. I have to do something to get up there. Now, I think that is something that is very fun, but I can only do it for so long because, yes, at the end, you are just driving a car in an open world with nothing in it. Now, they do have comms driving around and stuff like that, but it's not the same as driving around with other people. I'm sure if you are playing online with friends, it is a lot more fun, which I have done in the open world. It is really cool when you are playing with your buddies, or even in game lobbies when you are waiting, you can run around in the open world. That is a lot more fun than just waiting at a loading screen, waiting for everyone to show up. It still feels like it's a lot more engaging and fun during the race than previously. It feels like you are closer. If something bad happens to you, it actually matters now. A blue shell is thrown at you. That is devastating. It does open up different strategies for the game. I know some people do not enjoy those ones. I think it is completely fine. But, if you're trying to go for 3 stars, you're trying to get first place on every single one, you will have to play very well and play towards those strategies instead of before where you can just get ahead and stay ahead the entire time, which I do think is a nice take on it. And I do think it opens it up more to be a more fun party game because everything is a lot closer. You cannot just go pub stomp your friends anymore, because you get hit by one blue shell and now you are falling behind and everyone is catching up to you. You can't get that far ahead. I do think the CPUs are a little bit better in this game versus the other ones. I think they hold their items more smart. They actually do some of the moves. They take some of the shortcuts, and they actually do a lot of fun stuff in the 150cc. So I do think that's great. I talked about one of the game modes, just the regular Grand Prix, but they did add a new knockout one, which is kind of like a, I've heard people call it a battle royale, essentially, where you are going down like 6 different, going from one map to the next map, 6 of those, and you have to make it in the certain like top 20, then top 16, then top so on. And I think that it's a lot of fun when you're playing with other people. Playing with the CPUs, I'm not a big fan of it, but I think online I will be a lot bigger fan of it. So online gameplay, as I mentioned before, is so much fun. It is chaos on those online servers. It is so much fun. And I think Mario Kart 8 was healthy way into its life cycle 8 years later on the Switch. So I fully expect this one to stay relevant for many, many, many years. Maybe the entire life cycle of the Nintendo Switch 2. So those online lobbies are extremely fun, sometimes frustrating, but I had a blast. I played it many, many hours. I played this game for over 20 hours now, and it is a lot of fun. So that's all the information that I wanted to talk about for the actual console and the games that came out with it. Now let's talk about the other main talking point that many other people have brought up and the reasons for not purchasing it, and it is the price. Now, the main driving talking point about the Switch 2, about people not getting it, is that it is $450, and then they are starting to do first-party, some first-party games being $80 here in the United States. I think they really handled the price announcement and like the information about all those things really, really poorly at the announcement of the Switch 2, and I think they did the best they could with all the tariff situations happening in the United States. I think they would have had a lot more backlash if they announced it at $400 and then after the tariffs go in, having to raise it to $450. I think they would have looked way worse than just putting it at $450 and hoping for the best. Now, the $80 games, that is a little bit more worrying for me, and we are already seeing some other developers starting to put their games at 80. It was really nice seeing many game companies not move up to 70, but I feel like now that we see those $80 games, we are going to see more people move up to that $70 mark, and some games even come out at that $80. Now, for most other gaming companies, that's not a big deal, right? Most games come down after a long period of time, but Nintendo games do not drop in value, and that is a really big concern for many people spending $80 on one video game. Now, the price of the console, I think, is completely fair. $450 for this good of a console, this good of a screen. It's this powerful. People are saying it is closer to a Xbox Series S in power than to a PS4, and I think it runs great. It looks great. I think $450 is a steal, and the nearest competitor at the $450 price point is not nearly as good as the Switch 2 in every single way, besides being able to play other games. Like the Steam Deck. Let's talk about the Steam Deck. There is a $450 variant. I think it's OLED, but it's not nearly as powerful as the Switch 2, and you cannot play Nintendo games legally on it. Now, usually those third-party games do go on sale on the Switch, so if you're still wanting to have this as your main console, you still have some ways to play those games, not at full price. But like the new Xbox ROG Ally is going to launch at around $800, $800 to $900 is what I've seen online, and being double the price of the Switch 2. They say like the Switch 2 is super overpriced, and then people will go out and buy that. So now those ones do give you access to cheaper games through Steam and other online stores, but personally, the Switch is not my main console. I have a computer, so I don't care too much about those because I have access to it. This is the only way for me to access those Nintendo games. Otherwise, I have access to PlayStation and Xbox games through my computer. Like I said before, I think they could have lowered the price maybe by $25, $50 and people would have been a lot happier. I don't think the price of the console is really what's driving people to be upset with this console. It's the start of first-party games being $80 and a release of a $10 demo game that should have been free with the console. Now, I do think that is ridiculous, but Shiggy has to feed his family somehow, man. Now, if you haven't heard of that Shiggy meme, I'm sorry, but it is freaking hilarious. And yeah, I'm sorry. But I hopefully this doesn't lead to more $70, $80 games for the Switch 2. I do think they are still going to release those games, some of those games, at that $60 price tag for those first-party games. And they will go on slight discounts later, but a game that released back on the Wii U that was remade for the Switch 1 should not still be $60. There's just really no like arguing against that, but that is something that hopefully they will change after the release of the Switch 2, those Switch 1 games lowering in price as we go forward. Now, to combat the point of the $80 price tag, there are so many game developers who have been doing this for years, and it's practices that I would never want to purchase, but it's stuff that Nintendo doesn't do. Early access to online services and things like that, like the new Diablo game that came out from Blizzard. There was an early access where you had to spend $20, $30 extra to play it early, and there are so many others that have that same thing. Then there's Ultimate Editions, where you don't really get that much, or you get some certain in-game cosmetic item for another extra $20 when you purchase. And it's a FOMO thing where you can only get it when you first purchase it and not later, so people will buy it just because they think they will miss out on it. Or some kind of insert title edition game where, like, this is the only time you're going to be able to buy this thing, or you get something extra with the game or something like that. And they pay way more than $80 for those editions, and people are buying those, and that's why people or these companies are pricing these games that high, because they know consumers will buy this. And really, it's not just if you boycott Nintendo, not if you just boycott Nintendo games, but you would have to do it for all these developers that are doing all these things, and that is just something that's not going to happen. So letting them know that $80 price tags is not the best. But, those other things, those grind my gears significantly more than releasing an $80 game, personally. Nintendo does give access to their online catalog for significantly cheaper than PlayStation does for a yearly subscription, and same thing with Xbox for a yearly subscription. So you get all those games for a lot cheaper, online access for a lot cheaper for a console. And I think there's a lot of flawed accusations and reasonings from both sides. So if an $80 price tag for a video game is too much for you, there is still the release of the combo, where essentially Mario Kart is $50. So if you were able to grab one of those within the first year, are you really buying an $80 game? But if that is something that is not for you, then the Switch 2 is not for you, and eventually a lot of these other companies are going to follow. Other than the price of some of the games, I still love my Switch 2. I'm not regretting getting it. I was a day one buyer of the Switch 1, and I put so many hours into these games over the last 8 years. I look forward to what Nintendo has to release in the upcoming years, and I hope that this console does just as good as the one before it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Peace.